Hi, my name is Fabian de la Fuente, and I beat the often path by bringing new innovations into a reality. Maybe they work, maybe they don't work, but that's my job, to bring them to reality.
Today, I'm honored to have Fabian de la Fuente joining us. Fabian is a 6-time serial entrepreneur with a 33-year history in technology innovation, holding over 100 patents in software, electronics, and photovoltaics. He has led diverse teams on 4 continents and launched numerous technology products globally. As the co-founder and CEO of Solaires Entreprises, Inc., a Canadian cleantech company, he is now pioneering the development of perovskite-based solar cells, aiming for higher efficiency and sustainability in solar energy, something that is badly needed right now. If you're wondering what it takes to build and scale and sell a business in the eco space today, this episode is for you. So here's Fabian de la Fuente, I'm Ross Palmer, and this is Beat the Often Path. Welcome to the show, Fabian. It's so great to have you here. You have brought a lot of new innovations in the world. I think you have something like 100 patents. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. So I was born an inventor. I was born in Mexico, and there's lots of innovation happening in Mexico, especially because you need to create your own things sometimes. And I learned how to write patents, and I studied to be a patent agent, so I could write my own patents, and I was able to write all the patents, and that's why I have more than 100 because they are very expensive.
So you follow the Einstein route? You worked in the patent office, literally?
I didn't work at the patent office, but I did work as a patent agent for my friends. So friends will come to me with an idea, and we'll create a patent, and we'll draft it, and they will file it.
And so from that, you learned all of the ins and outs and how to do that for yourself. That's wild. How awesome.
Yeah, that's how I got into patent writing. But it's part of being an inventor that you need to patent your ideas.
You're starting a company now called Solaires, but this is not your first company. You have done many, many companies over the years. You've brought many products out. When did you first start inventing, and what's the beginning of your life as an inventor and entrepreneur?
So as an inventor, I was very little when I started working with things, disassembling things, destroying things, and building new stuff, especially electronics. When it came time for me to select a career, I did it on the business side, not on the engineering side, but I was always working on the engineering path. So that's when I started bringing my ideas to life. And it was in Mexico many years ago, like 25 years ago, that I invented the iBoard, the interactive whiteboards that school uses. And that was my first commercial invention. Before that, it was inventions just to help me on everyday life.
The very first one, the one that all the schools use, you invented the first one of those, really?
Yes. So there's different brands in the market. Of course, you are not the sole inventor of some things. There's other companies that do it, but my product was in many different schools in Mexico, US, and Canada. Then there was a lot of Chinese competitors, and that's when I decided to sell the company.
Got it. So what year was that you started that?
I started that in 2004.
Okay.
The first interactive whiteboards, we were using projectors. By 2010, we started using LCD displays, which is now what you see more often.
Okay. So you've been at this for almost 20 years seriously, and you think you were born an inventor, which is a very bold claim to make. So tell me about the early years. Were you always tinkering as a kid, or how did you know that you were born to be an inventor, to create stuff?
I was always tinkering with things, and I asked my parents to buy me chemistry sets, and then I went by myself to buy chemistry stuff, chemistry materials, and I remember I play a lot with mercury, and
Okay.
and I
You don't
I
have much
bought
longer left then, do you?
I
How
have
much did
no
you pay
idea.
with mercury?
And I bought really dangerous stuff. At one time they didn't want it to sell it to me. I was 12, I think, and I brought my mom to buy it for me, and they sell it to her, and then I grabbed it, and of course everybody wants to make bombs,
Yeah.
so that's what I was doing at that time.
I have a similar story. My grandpa was also a chemist. He was a brilliant man, a very, very smart. He wrote books on quantum physics and on chemistry. And when I was a kid, he introduced me to a lot of things. He got me my first pocket knife when I was a child. And he also tried to get me a chemistry set. And we went to the mall. And he was very upset that the chemistry set that they sold to kids in the mall didn't contain the ingredients to make gunpowder. He thought it was a bad chemistry set and they tried to tell him, they're like, sir, we don't do that anymore. We don't put that, because apparently in his day, you could just get whatever.
Yeah, in his days, actually, I saw a chemistry set from the 1930s that had one of the radioactive stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. They're like, hey, play around with radiation, right? Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's okay, yeah. Okay, so you were always tinkering, you were playing with chemistry sets, you were building stuff, you created a product that was successful. Now, nowadays, you're working on a solar technology company, which is very interesting, and you are a carbon neutral company with Solaire, and you're obviously trying to usher in this new age of alternative energy, which I firmly believe in. At what point in your journey did you decide to switch towards something that was more eco-friendly or earth-friendly? Was that a passion that you had, or was that just something that evolved out of inventing and looking for business opportunities?
It was an evolution, because I always started something and then got bored and then changed to something completely different. So I started with the interactive whiteboards. Then I moved to transparent displays for marketing purposes. Then I moved to components inside the electronics. And now what we are doing here in Solaire, we are doing the basic science. So basically we change completely the science so we can make solar modules that are able to power battery-driven devices. So for example, I don't know if you remember the solar calculators. Those things you never had to change or recharge the batteries. And the question is why we don't see the same technology in everyday products. And the reason why is because we need new materials and technology to fulfill those requirements. So that's what we are doing at Solaire. We created a photovoltaic module that is capable of charging battery-driven devices. So right now we are starting with small devices like wireless keyboards, water faucets, and smart door locks, but we are also working with companies like Honda to create the next generation of solar electric vehicles. That's going to happen like in 10 years, but that's what we are doing, and it's only possible because we changed the chemistry on the solar modules we are using.
That's awesome. I had one of those calculators. I used to type bad words into it. If you type 8,085 into it, it's a bad word for kids in English. I'll let you figure that one out. But I know the calculator you're talking about.
The interesting part is that you still remember the number.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Who doesn't? And I also remember going to Radio Shack and getting those you could get these tiny little solar powered just solar panels I remember getting from Radio Shack. And I also used to like motors and making a solar powered fan and things like that. I would also kind of tinker with that. Too bad I wasted all of those skills in adulthood. But once upon a time, I was like you maybe. And I tried to convert an electric car, a remote controlled electric car that I had, to solar powered with stringing together some of these. But of course, I knew nothing about power demands, or I knew none of the technical specifications. So it didn't work. It was a complete failure. I just replaced the batteries with, like, I soldered in the solar panel and it just didn't do anything. And I was like, okay, screw that. But I remember messing with that a lot in those days.
Working at Solaire is basically what you are saying, but with a difference, because I have a team that backs me up. So any crazy idea, I throw it to the team and they said, yeah, maybe it will work. Let's see what happens. And they are the ones with the knowledge to do that.
That's amazing. So what's the opportunity and what did you see? You were getting away from silicon-based solar panels. Why did you see that there was an opportunity there? And what's the idea with your new material?
So silicon solar cells, which are the most common that you see everywhere in solar farms, solar rooftops, they are considered clean energy, but to make them, they are very polluting. You need to start with digging sand, then burning that sand. You use a lot of fossil fuels to burn them. And then you create lingots, and then you have to cool it down. So you use a lot of water to cool it down. And most of these processes, 98% are made in China. So then you need to ship them. And again, you contaminate, you create a lot of GHG emissions. and then you install it, and after you install it, then it's clean. But then the problem is, after 20-25 years, they become again polluting, because it's very complicated to recycle them. So what we said, okay, let's invent something that has more energy conversion efficiency than silicon, that is less heavy, that is less polluting to manufacture, and that it could be recyclable. So that's why we started working with a material called perovskite, which many different companies have worked with this for like 20 years. The problem is that they were not able to bring this product to market, because there is a trade-off on perovskite between the energy conversion efficiency and the stability. If you increase the energy conversion efficiency, the stability goes down, or the other way. We were able to stabilize that. So now we have a semiconductor ink, which is made of perovskite, that has high energy conversion efficiency and high stability, and a long shelf life. That is why we can now mass produce our devices, which is something some of our competitors cannot do, because every time they run a production line, they need to stop the line, clean it, drain it, clean it, and then pour different ink on it. With our technology, you can just keep pouring ink, and you can continue producing the devices. And
That's amazing.
we decided to go towards the indoor photovoltaic market and not the outdoor market, because lots of companies are focusing on outdoor photovoltaics. However, very few companies are tackling the indoor photovoltaic market. That is to power like wireless headphones, wireless keyboards, and any battery-driven device that receives light, indoor light continuously, especially IoT devices like sensors and things like that.
So there's enough light in everybody's home to power devices, and they don't even realize it? Because I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about indoor solar power before. I guess
No, actually,
it's
it's a very new segment, and we call it using wasted light, because the light that you have, you use it to see.
Yeah.
But then the light that I have next to me, nobody's using it, so we use that wasted light.
That's brilliant. And what is the upper limit of what that light could power? How big of a device could it charge a phone?
All the electronics need to change. For example, it's not like I create a solar cell that I can put on a Tesla and it's going to power that. It's not going to work. What needs to change is that now that we are going to have a solar rooftop on a vehicle that is going to be constantly recharging a battery, now you don't need a battery that big. And if you don't need a battery that big, then the car becomes lighter. And if the car becomes lighter, then the powertrain, you don't need too much power, and then you don't need too much energy, then the energy distribution system needs to change. So everything needs to change. Same with a cell phone. You cannot just put a solar panel on an iPhone and it's going to charge it. You need to go back to the basics, change everything inside, now that you know that you're going to have a battery that is going to be constantly charging. Because right now, iPhones rely on a battery that is going to last 2 or 3 days charge.
Right.
But what if the battery
lucky
is going to be constantly recharging? Then you don't have that problem. You can use a smaller battery, and then you can do different stuff.
Are you still talking about putting some kind of cell or a coating on the phone itself, or are you charging it some other way?
No. You need to put it on the cell phone itself. So basically, you create a solar module that you install, you put on the phone, and that is constantly recharging. We are not the first ones to do this. 15 years ago, remember that Nokia phone that the battery will last for like 7 days?
Oh yeah, I have one of those. I still miss those days. It was amazing.
And I bet you find one in a drawer, you power it on, and it's going to
I'm sure it still works. Yeah, that was incredible.
So that if you put a solar cell on that, it's going to work. It's going to charge it.
A phone like that would work, because that was the most disappointing thing about the release of the smartphone back in those days. I could play Snake for 6 days in a row and I would still be able to call from anywhere in the world. I had an analog signal. I missed both of those things.
And I think for calling, it worked better than today's phones.
Oh, for sure. You didn't need a digital. I could be in the middle of nowhere and I would just pull up that antenna blink and I would get a signal and I could make a phone call. Now it's like, you're always searching. Yes. Okay. So a phone like that, more energy efficient. So how many minutes or hours instead of a couple days would the battery be? Would it just be like a 15-minute battery, but everywhere you go that there's light, it's perpetually charging and therefore you don't have to worry about it? Or how do you see that working?
So let me give you a use case. So let's say a wireless keyboard. You need to change two AA batteries once every 6 to 12 months.
Sure.
With our technology, you don't need two AA batteries. You just need a small battery or capacitor that is constantly recharging. Because there's going to be times when there's not going to be too much light or something. So you change that. By doing that, what happens is the manufacturer of the keyboard doesn't need to acquire that many batteries, and the weight of the keyboard is reduced for transportation. And when the consumer buys it, now they know that they are not going to be polluting because they don't need to throw away like 20 batteries on a 5-year lifetime. And it relieves them from the pain of every 6 months to charge the battery. So basically you just leave it there. The keyboard is constantly recharging, and that's the idea.
And it's going to make a whole new category of horror movies where if somebody's left in the dark, they have 5 minutes until all of their technology stops working.
Yeah, something like that. But
you can ruin somebody's life just by putting them in a closet for a few minutes.
Yeah, so that's a different use case.
No, it's like, and the whole thing was dismantled in one sentence. No, but it's brilliant because I love the way you are thinking about this in a way that very, very few people are. You're thinking about these second and third order benefits and these knock-on effects from doing this that very few people seem to be contemplating when they talk about stuff like this. Because again, we know that shipping is a big deal. We know that logistics and transportation and all of these other areas around clean energy and around the devices in our life, these are giant polluting factors. These are giant wastes of carbon and energy and fossil fuels. So it's very interesting to me that you have a more holistic view of how we can reduce across the board with a few simple changes. When did you start seeing things like that?
About 3 years ago, when the pandemic started, it got you lots of time to think, and I learned that Apple was releasing some software on the phones that, depending on your geographic location, it was going to charge your phone at different times at different speeds, based on the type of energy generation. Like if it was fossil fuels, it will charge it faster at nights than on days and things like that. Here in British Columbia, we have a hydro, so it's always clean, so it doesn't matter. And then there was some studies on Apple, like saying, yeah, one phone is very little, but if you multiply that by the millions of phones that are sold every year, now it makes sense. So I said, okay, yeah, now if we power very small, because when I was talking with some investors 3 years ago, they will say to me, why will I want my phone to be charged with solar? I don't care. I can just plug it in and charge it. And now we learn the difference. So yeah,
it's truly amazing. And while it's good to congratulate, I see these things, positive news come out every so often about, Portugal ran completely on sustainable energy for a couple hours or a couple days, or 40% of energy over here is coming from renewable and sustainable sources, and all of that is really great, really, really great. But I think very few people realize, and I certainly didn't realize before a few years ago, how much waste is accumulating and how much happens after we build stuff. And even to build a windmill requires non-renewable resources between steel and plastic and ammonia. There are fundamental resources that go into all of our processes, even if it's green energy or not. And shipping things requires fossil fuels. And all of the concrete, all of these buildings that we build, like we're seeing in China right now, what happens if nobody lives in those buildings? Or what if that concrete starts breaking apart? We just have masses of garbage and concrete garbage and leftover solar panels and e-waste and computer waste. And these things don't live forever. And very few people seem to be talking about that side of things. And it seems to me like we don't really have a plan much for dealing with the creation side of green energy or the disposal side of green energy. But you could argue that both of those are as important, in my opinion at least, as the creating of the green energy itself. Do you agree with that?
100%. So, since the inception of the company, we saw that problem and we said, okay, we need to only use recyclable materials and we need to create an extremely easy manufacturing process that doesn't require any solvents that are not green and that is not polluting and that we can do it at ambient conditions. And that's what that's the task we gave to our scientists, and they came out with very good solutions. And that's what we are doing today.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you think it's scalable? Do you think that this is truly
It's completely scalable. We just opened a pilot production line here in Victoria, and actually my office is sitting here. And yeah, now we are producing those in alpha modules that we are shipping to our customers.
That's so cool. So I want to get to the use case of the car, because there are a few car manufacturers who are making cars that have a solar panel on the top. And obviously that's better than nothing in the sense that you wouldn't get just completely stranded somewhere. But obviously it's limited in usefulness and that you have to leave your car outside for a matter of days to get a small percentage of a charge. Very different than I never need to plug in my car ever again. But it sounds to me, like you said earlier, in 10 years, you think we might get to a place where you don't need to plug in a car ever again.
I always joke about this because this is coming from Honda Motors in Japan.
Yeah.
And they set up a goal to do it in 10 years. And I always say to my investors, like, if in 10 years they don't do it, they are going to do harakiri to them. So they better come out with a solution.
So what you're saying is you can always rely on Japanese car manufacturers.
Yeah, exactly. Because they will do it.
Well, that's kind of what you like to hear when it comes to stuff of the environment. You like to hear that somebody is that determined, because otherwise we keep kicking the can down the road. And it's like, oh, we missed our deadline. Let's just set another one 30 years in advance. Let's set another one 40 years in advance. But the reality is we just might not have that much time, right?
Yeah, you can see now golf carts electric power, solar powered. So it's just a matter of just scaling that a little bit, and that's it.
That is so exciting. So do you consider yourself an optimist about the future or a pessimist? What do you think about the state?
Extremely optimist, and my team is mostly scientists, and they are inside the box. So yeah, we have some challenges there.
All right, how can you teach me to be more optimistic about the future in a world with so much bad news?
Oh, I basically just go with my instinct, like, yeah, let's do this, it's possible. When somebody comes to me with a problem, I see it as a challenge, not a problem. And everything has a solution, one way or another, or just to see it in an optimistic way. So, yeah.
Do you feel that you've always had that, or is that something you've had to cultivate?
Yeah,
over the
always,
years?
always. And that's an inventor. An inventor needs to think that sometimes your inventions make sense, but they have no useful use. That's like nobody's going to use it, but it's a cool invention. And I remember a cartoon I saw with a guy pitching their ideas to their investors, and the investors just don't care, and the inventor is really happy showing all the inventions, like, and that's it. That's an inventor.
Do you think that describes you?
That describes me, because I have to deal with other people to stop me. Like, okay, Fabian, hold your horses. Let's see if this is real. This is something that is useful. If not, let's not do it.
Well, the last I read, and maybe that number's out of date, you raised over $6 million for this new venture that might be out of date. Has that been for you, raising capital for your inventions? Do you have a hard time getting people on board with your vision of the future, or do you find that that's relatively easy?
That's interesting, because before this venture, I was always the CTO of the companies I funded. So there was somebody taking care of the business, and I was just taking care of my engineering, doing the stuff. This time was different, because when I started this company, I had no idea on the science. I didn't understand the science. It took me like a year and a half to really understand what we were really doing. And so I'm sorry, one thing about me, my short-term memory is very bad. What was the question?
whether raising funding was easy or not. And don't challenge me on my short-term memory. You're not allowed to do that because I'm not allowed to look bad on my own show. I'm always going to edit it to make me look best. Just be advised.
That's good.
Because if you ask me that, I might go like, I wasn't paying attention. Oh, look, a butterfly. No.
Yeah.
Phew, thank goodness I remember that one.
Forget. So when raising funds, I started raising funds. Raising 1 million is very easy because you just go with friends and family. You just go with people that trust you, and you can raise the million. Raising 4 million, that's complicated because you have just a limited number of friends and people and wealthy people that know you, and then you have to go to venture capitals or big angel investors. And that's when the problem starts because you need to really, really come with very good ideas, very good business plans. So to date, we have raised $13 million, and right now we are raising $4 million. And it's tough. The more money you want, it's a little bit more complicated to raise. 1 million, easy. That's what I tell every entrepreneur. When you start, if you have a good idea, you have a good business plan, you have a vision, you are compromised with your company, you have a good team, you have a good idea, and the timing is perfect, raising 500 to a million, that's easy. The rest is a little bit more complex.
So when I think about building a business, or at least when I used to think about that, and I think maybe many people feel the same way, you think, I'm good at baking cakes, so therefore I should open a bakery. Or I'm good at graphic design, so I should make a graphic design company. What does it take to decide to make a company around something that you know that you're not good at? Like, I know I'm not a football player. What makes me decide to build the equivalent of a company of a professional football player?
Yeah, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. So if you are good at just doing one thing and you don't want to move out of your comfort zone, maybe just work for somebody and help them do that, or build a team and do that, but don't grow, because that's when the problems start. So when you are an entrepreneur, you have an idea, and you need, the first thing that you need is to find a team that will help you take it to the next level. Easy things, maybe you can do it yourselves. Things like what we are doing at Solaires, it's really complex. When we started, I said to my friends, like, this is not even rocket science, because rocket science is solved. We have humans have put rockets to the moon.
Elon
That's easy.
Musk.
But what we are
do
doing right now, nobody has done it, and that's the problem. So we had to change the science, and then scientists, they are always like, yeah, we can do this much, and you have to push them like, no, I want you to do all this. So it's a little bit different.
So in your case, if you're assembling that team, are you just paying those salaries from day one? And is that what the investment go towards? You're saying, okay, I want you to come around. You have to start paying your people from the first minute, right? And is that why you need investment up front?
So thanks to God, I'm a 6-time serial entrepreneur. So serial entrepreneur means I created a business, I built it, and then I sold it, and then you have some money. And after 2 or 3 of those, you already cover all your basic needs: house, nice car, send your kids to study abroad, travel wherever you want. 4, 5, and 6 is just money to play. So then you use your money to play. So when I started this company, I put some money into it with my co-founder. We said, okay, let's build our profiles. We need one guy who knows about this. We need one guy who knows about this. We need a girl that knows our marketing. So we start hiring the people, and then we start building this. So yeah.
Okay. And that is a trend that we tend to see from the entrepreneurs who do it well. They start and they get a little win from their first venture, and then they use that. Let's say they get $1 million from their first, and then they use that to get 10 from the next. And then if you keep that up for 10 years, you can have a multi-billion-dollar company. I mean, obviously that's what happened with the biggest entrepreneurs in the world. Is that something that you think gets more logical and easy as you climb that ladder, so to speak? Or is it just as hard to build that larger company now as it was to start your first?
It gets easier because now you have credibility. So people will say, hey, this guy built this before, and it was very successful. why not help him build this next thing? So that's how you have friends that will trust on you and then will invest in you, and friends who will help you towards the way, maybe not with money but with advice or something. So it's basically you build credibility towards your road, and every step you build a network. So some in this venture, I'm relying on people that I met for my network 10 years ago. And if I need something in China, I know who to call. In Taiwan, I know who to call. And and it's impressive because they are still in the same job, so it's easier to reach them.
That's a good point. I'm going to put in my calendar right now. Remind me in 10 years to contact Fabian when I need something. I'm gonna hold you to it. This is planting the seed. No, I'm just kidding. But no, that is truly fascinating. So you mentioned that you changed your focus, and you say I get bored with things very quickly. When you start a company, do you have the intention in mind of selling it after a few years, or
Always.
do you think, okay, always you
Always.
never think I'm going to stick with this, ride it till the end?
No, that investors, we call it lifestyle company.
Okay.
No, we don't. I don't like that, and investors don't like that because then they don't make money. The way investors make money is by the exit. That's when you make the real money. You don't make money by selling photovoltaic modules and getting royalties on that. It's just part of the play. The big money comes on your exit.
So what's your internal time frame then? What do you think from start to exit? What's your target? Does it vary project to project?
It varies, but not much. What we are doing right now is deep tech. So that means 3.5 years we have a minimum viable product. But if you are in software, you can have the minimum viable product in 6 months. So that's the difference. So usually I will say it's 5 to 7 years. Any company that goes over 7 years and you have not been acquired, there's something strange there. Usually we will start receiving offers to acquire the company 3-4 years into the company. Who wants to acquire you? Either a different government, a competitor, or a customer. They want to acquire you because they say, oh, there's a cool technology. I want this. I see future. Let's do it. Or companies, for example, Halliburton is one of our corporate investors, and they are investing in us, not just money, but also support, mentoring, and they are monitoring us. At some point, if we are interesting enough for them, they could be one of our acquirers.
Wow, that's really amazing. And what year are you in Solaire in that process?
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4. So you're getting close to the point where you're thinking, okay, it's almost time.
Yeah, but this is deep tech, so I'm still saying 3 to 4 more years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you might allow an extra year. If it goes to 8, you won't be upset, but only because of this unique example.
Yeah, but we already start receiving soft offers to acquire us. Still, the value is not what we want. So, but yeah, once we own the indoor market, there will be other offers. I bet.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
So what would you say then motivates you? You mentioned you have some money extra to play or to invest or to have fun. What is your primary motivating factor? I get the sense that it is not just making more money for the sake of making more money, or is it?
Every day is different. So every day is a new challenge, and that's good, and that's why I don't get bored. So right now we just finished building our production line, our pilot line. That was a challenge for almost 11 months. So and now we just finished, and now we are having the regular maintenance problems. We just started last 2 weeks ago working on it. Actually, our scientists there, and we are still having problems. Today's problem was, the air compressor is also, other than air, is bringing some water. So so now we need to put a filter there. And every day is a different challenge. That was today's challenge. Tomorrow's challenge is going to be another one, and then the customers will call you like, hey Fabian, can I use this? How can I do that? And then we need to work on that to see. So every day is a different challenge.
So at what point then do you know for yourself, having done it so many times, that you feel like you're onto something? At what point do you say, I think this is going to work? Is it after 1 year? Is it almost immediately? When do you believe, okay, yep, I've got it?
Once you start looking at something called product market fit, that means people are buying your product. So you launch the company and people start buying your product and they start having very good reviews about your product, and there's a word of mouth about your product, and you start receiving more purchases. That's when you say, yes, we did it, and let's continue like this. And then when the sales stale, you go like, okay, what happened here? If was that just a fad? I just closed one of my companies. We
I
sold
was
it.
going to ask.
Yeah, because we knew the people were not buying. It was a smart sit and stand desk company called Ergonomics,
Okay.
and we figured out the people were buying our desks not because of the cool technology, but because they just needed a desk. They could have bought any desk.
Okay.
So we go like, okay, so we split the company.
Yeah.
One company goes for furniture business and the other one goes for technology. We
Okay.
are right now commercializing the technology and the furniture is gone.
Okay. So you have shut some down before. You've gotten through the cycle and you yourself have said, no, this isn't going to make it.
Yeah, so if I'm saying 6 times serial entrepreneur, that means there's like 12 companies and they went under.
Okay.
But
12.
you don't put that in your pedigree.
Yeah, okay. But it's important to note, because lest you focus too much on survivorship bias. Otherwise, there are some people. I just watched the Beyonce movie. I don't know if you've seen this.
No,
right?
no, I haven't.
But you know about Beyonce, right? Only 42 years old. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. But you look at this person and you think that person has won everything she has ever entered into from the time she was 7 years old, from the first beauty pageant she ever entered into to every middle school and high school thing. She just won continuously, to getting a Grammy at the age of 17, to being loved by the whole world. Some people in the world just seem to win endlessly from the time that they're born. And sure, everybody has setbacks. That's obvious, of course, or challenges. But I'm always fascinated on who seems to have that journey, or like Tiger Woods, all the way. First time he had a club in his hand, he was winning tournaments and then became one of the winningest golfers of all time. Some people just have that in them. So I think it is important to note the losses as well as the victories, because that makes you more human. That makes it seem like you're actually a real person versus some sort of demigod.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. And you learn from that and you don't do it again.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that you've like alternated? Is it like one win, one loss, one win? Or was there a period of several losses in a row where you started to question yourself?
And not exactly. So my wife did question it, like said, Fabian, get a job and don't do one of these again.
Okay.
And but yeah, it's just you have the tribe, you want to do it, you want to continue doing it. And yes, sometimes you lose, and you lose quite amount of money because you need to liquidate people, you need to close shop and then continue again. So yeah, so it's just part of the life.
That makes sense. So where do you get your ideas from? I know one famous inventor used to almost drown himself. You know that guy who I'm talking about? I think,
No.
speaking of Honda, he was a Japanese guy, and he would basically put himself underwater and he would nearly kill himself by drowning himself. And the moment before he died, he would have all of his ideas.
Oh my God.
That's what he claimed.
So it's something very similar. All my ideas come from my dreams.
Wow.
So if you give me a challenge that I'm interested in, if I go to sleep and the next day I wake up, I may have solutions. Maybe it's not a good solution, but I will have ideas on how to solve that problem. So usually I go to sleep. If I have a problem, I go to sleep, and the next day I'll bring all the ideas to life. And that's how most of my patents got created. I had a dream, and then next morning I'm typing everything in the computer, and then I have a patent.
Do you have any idea how envious of you I am right now? My subconscious is trying to kill me. Every time I go to sleep, lions are attacking me, or I'm running naked through my old high school.
But that has a toll. For example, my short-term memory is extremely bad.
Yeah.
I think my brain is overloaded with information, because that overload of information is where the ideas come from. So if my brain was completely empty, then where will it pick up the ideas, right? But yeah, that's basically how these things work.
That's fascinating, because I've often wondered that. I feel that a little bit myself. I'm a little concerned about my memory too. And I know people who remember every kid that they went to high school with, every teacher they ever had, and what those teachers talked about. I don't remember any of that stuff at all. But if you give me an IQ test, I'll do better than 99+% of the population. So do these things go hand in hand, or is it just some people like us have worse memory? Or is it really that if you're thinking about other stuff?
I think it goes hand on hand. Yeah, definitely.
So it's not a deficiency. It's just a different wiring of the brain.
Yeah, different interpretations.
Because you have so much stuff going on that it's hard to keep track.
Yeah. Sometimes you can tell me a joke and I will not laugh because I will not get it. But hours later, I will get it.
You're like the sloth from Zootopia. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Yeah. I remember that guy.
Yeah, that's very funny. So your brain is in some ways always processing. I think I have that too. And when I look at somebody like these great comedians like Conan O'Brien, he seems to remember everything. He remembers every face of every person. And he remembers the credits from a TV show that happened in the 1980s. And I think, my God, I would love to have that ability.
And they are very fast to come with ideas right there.
Right.
Like, I cannot do that.
Right, that kind of memory is different. But then you have to imagine that in some sense, as a problem solver, you do have a different set of skills. Like a Conan has no mastery of technology and probably couldn't resize a photo in Photoshop. And I try to remind myself of that sometimes. But there are definitely moments where that I think having a fantastic memory, and especially a memory for people and faces, is really a superpower. That's what I think.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody has different superpowers.
Yeah. But you're giving me comfort that I may still be successful with my own deficiency. So that makes me happy. I'll look to you. I'll say, I could still be rich and successful. That's so cool. So what do you think then, as we approach the end of our hour here, what is the most exciting thing for you about the future? What are you most looking forward to personally in the next several years?
Oh my God. So one is that we don't get destroyed by knocks from Russia or from the US.
Get nuked, yeah.
Yeah. So
in
that's
Canada,
one.
that's a very real,
Yeah. Think about this. 200 years ago, literacy was like 1% of the population. And not many ideas came. Only the big ideas came from this 1%, right? Today, literacy is about 100% in the industrialized countries, right?
Yeah.
And before, all the ideas came from one guy. Like, okay, who invented Graham Bell? He invented the telephone. It was only him. Maybe he had a lab and some teams, but it was his idea.
Yeah.
Today's inventions, like our invention, Solaires is not one person invention. It's many persons that had to come here and do all that work. And if you look at all the innovation, it's now teams. And now there's a lot of accelerators, incubators helping all these ideas come to life. I was 2 years ago with DuPont. DuPont, they invented Velcro, Teflon, all these great. They told me we cut our R&D budget by half, and the other half we are using it for mergers and acquisitions, because we prefer to buy startups like yours and integrate it into our portfolio, because we know there's more ideas outside than inside our organization. So they are letting regular people come up with ideas, develop their ideas, pitch their ideas to DuPont. If they like it, let's say a better detergent, they like it, they will incubate you, they will even help you sell your product, see if it works, and if it works, they acquire you. Then you become a millionaire and they own your product. They didn't have to invest in millions and millions of dollars on research and development. They just get it. And so that's what's happening right now. So there's technologies that I don't really understand. Like I use them, artificial intelligence, I use them a lot.
Right.
Quantum computing, I don't even get it, how it works. Before, many years ago, I didn't understand how a television worked. And I used to work in a factory of televisions, and I didn't understand how televisions work. Today, I understand. But quantum computer, people explain it to me, no idea. No freaking idea. And there's so many technologies that I will never understand. So future is going to advance really, really, really fast. So we are going to see things that's what I'm thinking. We are going to see things that we cannot even imagine today.
But does that scare you at all? Does any part of that scare? Or are you just purely excited for AI?
I'm purely excited. There's
Okay.
going to be so many, so many. I had to pitch to a group of people in England a product that didn't exist, that they could finance us for that product. I had to create like a 20-slide pitch deck. All my images were created by AI because the product doesn't exist. And before that, I will have to ask my rendering guy to do it, and the rendering guy will take months to do all those images. AI, within one day, we had all the images we needed for the pitch. So yeah, it's great.
Good for you, bad for the rendering guy. He's out of
Yeah,
a job.
very bad for the rendering guy. Since we adopted use GPT 3.5, one engineer that I had helping me with patents, it's gone because I can have ChatGPT write for me the patent, the full patent. Now I don't need the engineer. The rendering, we don't need the rendering guys. We just ask Bing Image Creator to do that.
Wow. And is that best, would you say, for a model or an approximation of what you're going for? I mean, you wouldn't use that yet for a final product or like a marketing asset, would you?
You know something? Sometimes AI does it better than we think. So we ask them, okay, create this, this, and this. And when we saw the final product, oh my God, it had things that we didn't even think about. So it's even better.
It's even better. But you would put that out as like a public-facing asset. Is any part of your website generated from AI?
No. We only use it for idea generation.
Okay, for prototyping and idea generation, and for being an imaginary wing. Okay, that's good to know. I was curious because the website photos look realistic to me.
No, they are real.
Say, if that was generated by Dolly or something like that, I would say, well, that would truly we have crossed a threshold at that point.
No.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, deep admiration. Real quick before we wrap things up, what part of Mexico are you from?
I was born in Mexico City, and then when I was 13, I moved to Tijuana, border with San Diego, California.
Nice. And
then I spent 25 years there. I studied at Southwestern College. I was admitted in college when I was 15 years old.
Whoa.
And and I was 15, so I cheated on the entrance exam, and I got a extremely high grade. And they just said, "Oh, you can skip all the 101s engineering. Like you can just go to the next ones."
Well, it didn't hurt you any. I was just in Mexico City a couple months ago. That's why I asked. Beautiful. I really enjoyed my time there.
Oh, okay.
I have been to Tijuana,
nice.
but many years ago. I just hopped over for the day kind of thing from San Diego when I was doing a road trip in college. But no, Mexico City is nice. I had some great restaurants there, and part of my team lives in Mexico City as well. Part of the people who work for my company live there, and so it was good to go visit them and see it. But that's why I asked. We have a very strong Mexican team, and they're awesome. So
okay. Saludos a Mexico.
Yeah, there you go. I'll clip that out for them. And the guy who's going to edit this video, he's going to be very appreciative of that. So his name is Oscar. So Oscar, that one was for you, man. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure. You have a very fascinating way of seeing the world. And I think I've picked up a lot of interesting tidbits from our short conversation. And it's going to help me think about my own life. I mean, I'm building a digital agency right now. And of course, when you're in it, I'm very much in it in terms of building something, and I have the responsibilities of the team. That's my life. And sometimes that is very challenging, especially these last few weeks. It's been very tough. But the idea of building something to sell it versus building something and just sticking with it, that also does kind of appeal to me. Because I think I'm like you in the sense that I also get bored after a time from doing something. And it's hard for me to imagine doing the same thing over and over and over again for decades. So I think there's a lot of bits that you have given me that I'm going to take away from this. So thanks for your perspective.
I'm glad this was very successful for you.
Yes, absolutely. Before we wrap it up, where can people find you and support your work? What would you like them to do?
Oh, so our website is solaires.net. I don't know how to spell that.
I think it's SOLAIRES.
Yes.
I hope.
Thank you so much.
We'll put it on the screen.
Or just Google my name, Fabian de la Fuente, and it's either me or a crook from Argentina.
Okay. It's either you're a crook from Argentina.
Yeah, I was Googling my name the other day, and there's a guy who bets money and owes people some money in Argentina.
Are you sure it's just not you with
Yeah,
before you had plastic surgery? Maybe that's all part of it. He cheats his way into the entrance exam. He commits a whole bunch of crimes, gets plastic surgery, moves to British Columbia. It all adds up. Changes his name from Fabian to Fabian.
Yeah, and the problem is when I got my citizenship here in Canada, I had to go to the police to check that I was not that guy. They had to fingerprint me and send the fingerprints to Argentina to see if I was not that guy.
Wow. All right. Well, if you're good enough for the Canadian government, then I guess you're good enough for my podcast. So we dodged the bullet.
That's good.
Yeah. What an interesting story. Fascinating. I wish you the best of luck in the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, I have no doubt you're going to pull it off. It's such a cool company. And again, thinking about the waste in the beginning and the end of these materials, making something that people see as green even more green, thinking about the life cycle and the effects of all of these things. I hope that people who aren't trying to build a business will take that away from this episode and realize that reducing one thing over here could have impact in many other sectors. And I love the idea that everything is interconnected. So thank you for that as well. And with that, the official podcast is over.